A very good evening to you, Mkai. It's just gone a minute after 7. This is Home with Mapaseka. I'm not Mapaseka. My name is Sotho Meyer, and I'm filling in for Auspasi, who is hopefully going to be back with you soon and, well, very soon. So we are talking surrogacy this evening, Mkai. In fact, we are coming to you from Rosebank at Cinema Privé. I've got a couple of guests with me this evening. They're very quiet. You can't hear them. I'd like you guys to just say hi so that everybody knows that I'm not alone out here. So 1, 2, 3. At the count of 3, hi, right, guys? 1, 2, 3. Hi. You hear Mkaya? I am with a couple of lovely people out here. We just watched an amazing movie. It is called hashtag. Well, the hashtag this evening we are pushing is hashtag straight from the bow. And of course, we are talking about surrogacy, as I said this evening. I'm joined this evening by Tepiso, as you know her. She is usually on the show with me, normally when I'm filling in. And I've also got a couple of other people that are joining me. We've got a lawyer that is joining us, seeing as we are talking about surrogacy, and also a lady that has gone through the journey of actually being a surrogate. Now, we are not taking any calls this evening, Kaya. Normally, I'd say give us a call on 08600000959, but this evening we are not taking calls. In fact, the people that are joining us this evening at the movies are going to be our studio audience. I'm hoping you guys, if you've got any questions, if you've gone through something similar, you want to take the journey, or you just have questions and just want to know what it's like to be a surrogate, or what it's like to be on the other end and need the services of a surrogate. So, like I said, to our panel, I'm just going to introduce our panel first. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and what your story is.
Hi, I am Maria. I'm a 3-time surrogate and very happy to be here this evening.
Okay. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself as well.
My name is Lekwee Motimele. I'm a lawyer, and yes, I'm also will be talking about the issue of surrogacy from the legal perspective.
Tabiso, good evening.
Good evening to you, Sotho, and to the listeners.
And I'm going to start with you as well, only because I was very shocked by what I saw in the movie this evening. And the first thing that I wondered when I saw the movie was, from a psychological perspective, if I am somebody that can't have a baby and I'm considering surrogacy, what should I be going through psychologically first? Is there like a course? Is there something that I should be doing first?
No, there isn't a course.
Well, not a course, but you know what I mean. But to go and actually prepare myself psychologically. Is this something that you're supposed to do for you and the person that's going to be a surrogate? And I'm saying this because what we've just seen, Kai, is a movie where, a lady becomes a surrogate and then she falls in love with the husband, falls in love with the baby a little bit somewhat, and then there's like a lot of fighting and that kind of thing. And do those kind of feelings, are they likely to happen? Because if you're carrying a child that you believe is somebody else's child, those feelings, are they likely to occur?
Well, we'll hear more from the lady who went through it practically. But here's the thing. If you're going to be a surrogate, you have to be sure as the person who's going to receive the child that the person carrying your child psychologically, emotionally, mentally and otherwise is healthy enough to carry the baby, that they're prepared, because there is that process of bonding with that baby, of identifying with the baby, having them, carrying them in your body, and that you're going to have to prepare yourself to let go of the child and not bond with them at that level where you identify them as yours. The other side is that when you are actually, a lot of women who are struggling with conceiving, they have issues with the fact that they feel they're not woman enough, that they're not complete, that the fact that there's another woman who's going to carry my husband's child may mean I am not good enough and that woman is better of a woman. And the fact that you're actually watching a life grow in another woman's body and you can't do it, it feels like your body has failed you. And all of those feelings, you need help to deal with them, let alone the pain of not being able to carry your child.
So let's actually go back to the beginning and talk about what surrogacy is, because there are people out there that are not exactly sure. There's a lot of things. There is adoption, there is IVF, in vitro fertilization. When we say surrogacy, what exactly are we saying?
Well, I'm also going to learn, but what I'm aware of is that, particularly in the movie that we were watching, my egg and James's egg.
James is your husband,
James,
or your
husband,
partner, or the person that is chosen to be your baby daddy.
It is fertilized and then it's inseminated artificially into the surrogate's body. Or we could use the surrogate's egg and my husband's, James's sperm, and then to conceive in that way. Now, you have, for example, people like, what is her name? Tracy Ellis Ross, right, whose mom is carrying her baby. because she physically cannot carry the baby to fruition. So for whatever physiological makeup, but I think a doctor should explain that much more so that they explain what the issues are. What I'm aware of is that psychologically, the fact that you are a woman and you have to come to terms first with the fact that you cannot carry your child or you cannot conceive. And by the way, we're not even talking about, by the time we talk about surrogacy, we've ignored the fact that there's an entire process where you feel like you cannot conceive, where you keep
you've tried
struggling.
a few things already.
You've tried a few things. You've encountered failure and disappointment over and over again, so that by the time you do go for a surrogate, emotionally, you are at that level where you know you cannot do anymore.
All right. So I'm going to come to you, Nelson, and talk about the legal aspect of it before we actually talk to probably the most important person here this evening, somebody that can give us more insight as to what exactly goes on for somebody that is a surrogate. Now, legally speaking, is it the same as what we saw in the movie? Is the surrogate the birth mother? Do they have what I'm trying to say is that the surrogate the mother before they relinquish their rights as a parent? Is it like that in South Africa, or is that like an American thing? In South Africa, what does it mean when somebody else is carrying your child?
Evening. The issue of surrogacy in South Africa, fortunately, we're having the law that is regulating it. We're having chapter 19 of the Children's Act that is actually prescribing all the procedures that whenever a person wants to go into this agreement, because from the legal terms, it's an agreement. Two people must come to an agreement, and then the act prescribes certain laws that and certain conditions that must be put into that particular arrangement. However, like from the movie, if you have seen, there was no agreement, and they are saying, like, at the end of the day, the child belongs to the surrogate mother. That's not the case in South Africa.
In South Africa, that's not
because we are having the agreement. However, there must be the processes. That agreement, before you can agree to actually start with the process, the court must confirm that particular agreement. In other words, it's not only that the two people must agree, but the court must only endorse that the conditions that have been included in the agreement are of such a nature that they are not violating each other's rights and will be legally enforceable in terms of South African law.
What about if it's the other way around? Because we once actually had a person that called in to one of the shows that I was working on, and her complaint was that she is a surrogate mom and she has met the parents and they did everything that was supposed to be done. 6 months into the pregnancy, they disappeared. Literally disappeared. And she couldn't, and this is a true story. This was somebody that called into a show and said, they have disappeared, I cannot find them. The agency that I've gone through has also disappeared. Everybody has disappeared. What then happens? Whose child is that?
Unfortunately, under that circumstances, we having the clauses that deal with terminations of that particular agreement when it comes to an end and when it begins. But you must remember, when the act or laid down the laws to govern certain action, it's not necessarily that it will cover all other issues. So the courts, that's where they are coming in to help interpreting certain clauses. Like, for instance, we're having a recent constitutional court that managed to invalidate one of the clauses, which required that for you to become a surrogate before, one of the GMAs of the parents must be used.
One of the parents must be used.
Yes.
Okay.
So then there was a person who was single, and she was actually infertile, if we can put it that way, that her egg cannot be used.
Okay.
So in terms of the act, it then reached a point whereby she cannot qualify to the surrogacy arrangements.
So what you're basically saying is that she could not go and get somebody else to be her surrogate parent.
Yes, because for you, there are categories. It is when there is a husband and wife, they are having their own GMAs, and then they are taken to be planted into the surrogate.
Somebody else, yeah.
And then there's also circumstances where there's only one person. That person, again, they can go and get a donor.
Right.
And then they also do the same thing. It does not necessarily have to be the egg of the surrogate mother. So, but there come an issue whereby there is a mother who cannot produce the egg, if we can put it in a layman's term. And therefore, she also wanted to go into surrogacy, not adoption. So now the issue was that she cannot provide her own GMAs. So now what they did under the circumstances was to ensure that they stop her in terms of the constitution. They went to court all the way. But however, the decision when it came out was that particular clause will be invalidated. In other words, they scrap it out by the court to say it is against the constitution, to say there must be a genetic link between the child and the surrogate mother and one of the commissioning parents.
So I'm going to come to you then, Maria. You've done this 3 times.
Yes, I have.
That is a lot of times. That is a lot of times. And it's actually a great thing that you are able to help people over and over and over again 3 times and not get tired. How did you actually start this journey? When did you decide, or how did you decide that you'd like to help people out that cannot have their own kids?
Well, just after the birth of my second child, I knew that my family was complete. I didn't want any more kids of my own. I was early 30s, so still very well within childbearing age. And I just one day came across an ad and decided, let me apply, let me see what happens. And it just started from there.
And what was the conversation between you and your partner, or you and your husband? What was that conversation?
I think we were pretty much on the same page. I said to him, look, I found this. I find it interesting. What do you think? And he said, if that's something you want to look at, and it actually took a really long time. I think it was about 2 years before anything happened. By that time we'd already, in our relationship, made peace with the fact that
How many kids did you have at this time?
I have 2 children of my own. My first surrogacy was a twin, a boy-girl twin.
Wow, okay.
Yes. Awesome kids. I don't have contact with them. I do see pictures and updates and so on. But there was a clause in our contract.
So you decided to go on this journey. You've decided to help people out. You've decided to be a surrogate. You already have kids. Yes. You are now pregnant, and your kids are now expecting a sibling. What is that conversation?
Well, I explained I have 2 little girls. I explained to them from very early on that sometimes mommies need help, that their tummies are broken. I mean, my kids are still very young. They're 7 and 5. So I explained to them that sometimes mommies' tummies are broken and we have to help them. So that's pretty much the technicality of it that they know. Is just sometimes mommies' tummies are broken.
How many times can you do this, and how many times are you actually willing to do it?
I will carry on doing it until the doctor tells me I can't. Sure. Yes, it's part of who I am. It's part of my life.
And it doesn't take away aspects of your life, you feel? Is there ever a time when you feel like, because pregnancy is a lot. I mean, I have 1 kid, and it took everything out of me to have just 1 kid. My entire life changed, like upside down. 1 kid, and my entire life changed. So for you, how much does it take out of you to do that?
I think, like for anybody else, the last little bit of pregnancy is really, really tough. And it's a normal pregnancy. You don't feel good, you're tired. But I think it's a very bittersweet end. To see parents with their kid, and it's a dream come true. It's a magic moment to see. And so that keeps me going.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Absolutely.
It's very difficult to have a conversation with a black person about surrogacy. I don't know if we're going to get a chance. And I want to know, what are the kinds of things that goes through your mind? What is the conversation with your husband about how you prepare yourself emotionally, psychologically, the rest of your family, according to your culture? What are the things that you actually need to do to get yourself in the zone to say, yes, I'm going to do it?
Well, for me personally, I've always been pretty much headstrong, so I do what I want to do no matter what anybody says. My husband and I are very, very much the same in that way. So when I suggested to him that we do this, he was on board pretty much from the start. And we looked at all the risks, and there are many risks to my life. We have our kids to think about. I think it's a part of, like I said, it's a part of who I am. It's something you have to decide that it's important. Some people no, there's many things to support. I support surrogacy. It's just a part of our family.
So you didn't have any cultural taboo issues about having somebody else's child grow inside you. I'm going to translate. Somebody's blood combining with your blood, and then the ancestor. Of course, you didn't have those issues.
Well, look, the older generation in our family did have many questions about the technical part of it, the medical part of it. But I think pretty much, like I said, I'm quite headstrong, and I think they understand what I do. And I was adopted myself, which is also a really, really big thing. 40 years ago, you couldn't get away with saying I adopted a kid. It was a really big.
It was always a secret. Like, I know a lot of the times in black families, you find that there are people that might be adopted, even though a lot of black people adopt from the family, but it's always a secret. We don't talk about the fact that this one is actually from Auntie Mang Mang. It was always a secret.
Yes. And it was the same with the older generation of, dare I say, white people. That, you wouldn't say that, okay, I got this kid adopted. I actually have an adopted brother as well. So starting from that, my whole family was a mixed match of coming together. It was untraditional, unconventional. So for me, it was a totally natural decision to come to in time.
Well, it's great to hear that there are people out there that are still willing to help people, especially in such a big way. Pregnancy is a big deal.
The process of surrogacy is something different from adoption. The child that the surrogate mother is carrying at no stage belongs to the surrogate mother. In other words, once the child is born, is a legitimate child of the commissioning parents. Hypothetically speaking, I'll say surrogate mother at no stage is she having a legal right to the child in terms of South African law. And then upon the birth of the child, immediately, there's no application, there's no processes. Upon the birth of child, they can agree when the child will be given to the commissioning parents. For instance, it depends on how the child is born. Like some child will need to bond a little bit with a surrogate mother, but it must be within the reasonable time. That's how it is.
Right after the baby is born, it's a very emotional time for everybody that is involved. Yes, there's hormones. You get sad, you get angry. Everything of a normal pregnancy you will have, right? So you do get the baby blues and all of it. You do. As for when they take the baby, it usually, well, for myself, after the baby is born, I get offered to hold the baby, spend a little bit of time. Then baby goes home with their parents. It's as simple as that.
Have you been a surrogate for a black family before? And I'll tell you why I'm asking this. I just want to know what the experience was like in terms of emotionally for a black couple, if you have been a surrogate for a black couple.
Yeah, I have been a surrogate for a same-sex couple, a conventional couple, and I'm actually working with an Indian couple at the moment, but not a black couple yet.
Not a black couple yet. So I guess where I'm going with this, everybody that's out here with us, is would you consider surrogacy? Either being a surrogate yourself or, using a surrogate mother, somebody that can actually help you if you are having trouble. Tsepiso, your thoughts?
I get the sense that, Maria, you've prepared yourself to be detached?
Yes, I do. Before I go in for the in vitro, I already start telling myself it's not mine.
And I get also the sense that because of how you've prepared yourself to detach, the emotional engagement is very minimized for you in terms of investing who you are, what you love, how this is a part of who you are and the future it's going to have. So after you are done giving birth, it is okay for you to release.
Yes, like I said, I don't want any more children of my own. So there is I do not feel the loss of not bringing a baby home. For me, it's probably harder to lose the connection with the parents. Because it is, after the baby's born, you don't talk every day. You don't call every every evening,
Okay.
or
You lose the relationship.
that is harder. It's like losing a friendship.
Yeah.
So that for me is the harder part.
So you bond more with the parents as they go through the pregnancy with you, and because you engage more with them, you lose that relationship after the baby's born.
Yes, look, we do remain friends. Like I said, we do speak maybe
now and
once
then.
a month, like little updates, this or that. But yeah, in a 9-month period, it's a very close journey that you take with somebody. You really do get very, very close because you share dreams, you hear about everything that they want, the baby's names, all those things are out of your hands. So, losing the connection with that, it's probably the hardest part for me.
And especially because it's grown-ups, it's relationships that are organic, that have been formed. You have conversations, you bond. With the baby, it's different. The baby is inside you, but especially because you've prepared yourself for the fact that this baby, after this, it's kind of not happening. Where I get confused, and I don't know if everybody else here is as confused as I am, we are saying culturally this is what we've always been doing because we didn't have the Western tools, right? We didn't have the IVF, we didn't have that. Now, we have the tools, we have the know-how, maybe we even have the finances in the house to be able to do surrogacy. Why then is the stereotype different for us to have our own child and use a surrogate versus you sleeping with my sister?
Because are we having a discussion?
Well, it's a question that I would like to
Okay.
ask, and I'm building on to what you
Okay.
said because I get the sense that that's where you were going with your question.
I feel, and please disagree with me all you want. If you are coming from a frame of reference that says, why are we not? You are already prejudging the fact that you are using one frame of reference to judge another, and the two are not necessarily the same. So let's get back to the fact that as we become westernized and we know better ways about doing things and medicine improves, our way of thinking and our beliefs are still very much attached to where we come from. So if you are with a family and with a partner who is much more progressive and much more conventional, that might not be such an issue. But if you are still a very traditional person and feels that I'm a dlozi, I must still do that and that and that and that might be an issue. So it's actually about your frame of reference. And perhaps the conversations we need to be asking is, what is stopping you from doing it? What is it about your background, your heritage, your culture that makes it hard for you to feel that this is an option for you?
Well, I hear what you're saying. I completely hear what you're saying, Tepiso. But for me, I'm still not quite satisfied. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not satisfied because for me, I truly, and maybe I'm just bringing too much of myself into this, I just feel like if we did not have the tools to do this medically, we were doing it in a different way. And now there's a way to do this in a way that it is now biologically our child. I honestly do not understand why the stigma is that huge. Is there something in us, in our culture, that makes the stigma that much bigger? But, like I said, we're going to be taking your views. You've got questions to ask as well, Mkaya. Maybe you've got something that you'd like to know. I'm going to come to your question just now. But before that, I just want to remind you, Mkaya, that, we've just watched like a really fantastic movie. And the reason why we are talking about surrogacy this evening is because we watched a movie called When the Bar Breaks. And it is about surrogacy, which talks about the nitty-gritty, talks about the more the things that you don't think about when it comes to the legality of it and what could possibly happen. And that is how we ended up with this topic. Is surrogacy, is there a stigma attached to surrogacy, and why? Your question, if you could just please say what your name is and what your question is.
Hi, Sotho. Mine is not really a question. It's more of a comment on what you're saying.
Yeah.
For me, for the longest time, I've always had this notion that culture and tradition have never been for the benefit of women. It's always been for the benefit of men and for the benefit of family. When something happens in family and when something happens between a woman and her partner, men will always hide behind culture and tradition, and family would always use it to get their way for women to do things. And when it comes to the surrogacy, yes, we've always had ways of doing it and we've always used it as culturally acceptable. But the minute we want to do it in a different way, there's a lot of stigma because it's classified as Western, and it's taboo for a black woman to do it that way. It's taboo to derail from culture. It's taboo to derail from tradition. And it's always been a conception that when you're a woman, you are meant to abide by what society tells you. Society has always had these set rules for women that as a woman, you're supposed to do A, B, and C. And the minute you decide that I don't want to do that, you are treated as an outcast. You are labeled certain names that at the end of the day, you do kind of feel like an outcast, but at the same time, you want to hold on to your identity, your belief system, your chain of thought. And it's always difficult to socialize with women who are more channeled into what society tells you to do. So it's always been a stigma for a black woman to want to do things differently.
Would you consider surrogacy? Either way, would you be a surrogate or would you be, somebody who is using the services of a surrogate?
I would. I've had.
Are you in a relationship, a committed relationship, or married?
No, I'm neither.
Okay, but you would consider it?
I would. It's a conversation that I've had quite a few times with my friends, that if you are left with an option, an alternative, whether it's IVF or surrogacy, would you take it? And some of my friends have always said that no, they will always find ways to conceive, and their belief system believes that if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. But for those who really want to have children, it's always been, I will consider IVF, I will consider surrogacy. If it means helping another couple, I'll do that. There was a gay couple who used a surrogacy to get a baby, and it was all over the tabloids. And even though they made a conscious decision that this is the route we're taking, society still went and labeled them as taboo and unnatural for them to go that route, because it is not in the black system to do things that way.
All right, thank you very much. Thabisa, I want to ask you a question. And I'm asking this question based on what she's just said. Is there a sense that culturally the woman is excluded in the process? Because you are. If we are in a situation where I can't have kids and my husband can't have kids, and we bring my sister in, like you explained, Nelson, we bring my sister in, and my sister then has coitus with my husband, and they have a baby, they conceive a child. But now, with surrogacy, I am included. I am involved. Both of us are involved. So is there a feeling that culturally the woman is excluded? Because you can't have kids, so we're going to leave you out, Wena. You don't know how to do the business. We're going to get somebody that can come do it. Is there that sense?
You want me
Or,
to? You want
no,
to
I'm asking the question that could it be that sometimes when you are a young, upwardly mobile female, would you see it that way? Because that's how I would see it. And maybe that's incorrect. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm reminded on the 27th of September, we had Florence Masebo on the show, and she said, just because of a few bad people who have bad habits and use culture to justify their bad habits, we say our culture marginalizes women, disempowers women, and then we quote them with such vigor and passion that it represents the entire culture, forgetting it's bad people with bad habits that have justified it over generations. There is still another side. So to answer you, in some instances, yes. Now, what is interesting is that I work in very private spaces with people in their most intimate and most vulnerable, and these things, they happen in between the sheets. The agreement, the conversations happen in the privacy of the bedroom. So when a man decides, yes, I'm a Zulu man and I am going to help my wife give birth, irrespective of what my culture is, and he feels that's who he is because that's part of what he sees his role as, we don't say he's not cultural. We don't say it's taboo. And it remains something that happens. So it has to do with what is happening between the two of you, the relationship that you're cultivating. I am very wary about using bad habits, bad choices of bad people and then generalize it to entire culture. But we tend to do that as black people, especially when we compare ourselves with white culture.
Okay. Well, I guess that is Thabiso's opinion. Ka, you are more than welcome to share your opinion with us. Unfortunately, if you're at home, you can't share your opinion with us because we are out at the movies. We've just watched a movie that's called When the Bar Breaks, that is about surrogacy. Just before we went to break, the three of us with Nelson as well, were talking about the fact that the commercial aspect of it. Like a lot of people would think that, oh, if somebody's doing this 3-4 times, it must be for financial gains. What would you say to that?
We don't get paid to be surrogates at all. We don't get a salary. We don't get an allowance. Basically, we get reimbursed for our expenses, travel expenses to go to the doctor, because it shouldn't cost you money to help somebody else.
Yeah.
So no, you don't get money. It's not America where you hire a surrogate.
And you pay them.
Yeah, and in South Africa, as far as I know, it's completely illegal So yeah, no, you can't get paid for it.
But what about when you say you don't get paid? For me, then I wonder, like if you're working, the maternity leaves, and maybe from a legal perspective, you can talk about this. This person gets ill because they're pregnant. There's things happen. What happens there then? And if you're doing this 3 times, that's a lot of maternity leaves.
This is part of the volunteering things that the person can just decide to do out of her own heart or the goodwill of her heart. You are not allowed to have salary from this at all. It's prohibited by law.
Okay.
The act you'll actually be in contravention of the act. Actually, you'll be prosecuted for trying to get money out of surrogacy. So the only reimbursements you're going to have out of this is only the money of the actual things you spend on the pregnancy, going to the doctors, anything that has to do with the pregnancy.
Do you then declare the gifts? So if I have a surrogate and I feel like, oh, this lady's just been so wonderful to me and I want to buy her a gift, I want to buy her a big gift, do I declare that in order not to get prosecuted?
Unfortunately, the law sometimes just create regulations, and some other policing or enforcement is where the problems come.
Yeah.
There's not much follow-up on that, and you cannot actually stand here and saying we are doing a good job in ensuring that they are not getting paid. That you won't actually know, because some things they can be done in private, but should that come to the attention of the authorities, then you'll be prosecuted.
And because we're only, sorry, Tepiso,
Yes.
I'm just going to ask you one last question and then also hear from Tepiso. Because we're running out of time, I just want to find out about, legally speaking, how binding is that document? I know legal documents are binding, but if she goes and decides to have an abortion because she's not feeling well and she doesn't want to, how binding can she get prosecuted? The person that's carrying the baby. So if my surrogate decides to do something with the baby and decides I'm not going to go through with this, how binding is that contract? Do they get prosecuted?
And if I get sick after delivering the baby, there's complications. Are you still, commissioning parents still liable for the medical bills?
All those things are covered in the contract. Remember, there's no emotions involved here. Or the act actually is trying to take away emotions from it. This is a contract. Just like when you go to the shop, you're buying something, you get out. The game store, people don't have to know you anymore. They mustn't come to you and saying, is it working or it's not working?
Sure.
Can you see that? It's the same with surrogacy. If immediately after the parent is handed over to the commissioning parents, that's all. It's stopped there. No relationship.
Nelson, did you hear Angelina?
No,
Angelina said they didn't even care. Once they took my child, no phone calls, nothing. She was expecting a relationship afterwards. The pain of being rejected and abandoned really hurt her. So of course it's emotional.
I agree with you from psychological point of view. But from legal point of view, she will tell you that she go through the contract. They explain to her, you can't do this, you can do this, you cannot do this. Once the child is born, it's not yours. It's like you were never pregnant.
Yeah.
Forget about that child. It's like it's a part of your life that is not yours.
Sure. So I guess that brings us almost to the end of the show, Mkhaya. Actually, it is the end of the show. There's only 3 minutes left of the show. Unfortunately, we wish we could carry on, but we cannot do that. The only thing I can tell you is that the movie that we've just seen this evening, which is called When the Bow Breaks, it opens on the 4th of November, which is on a Friday. I think it is next week Friday. And if you want to see it, you would want to see it in style out at Cine Prestige, which is where we are in Rosebank. I think I will never ever be able to watch movies ever again, like traditionally in like a normal cinema, after having been in the middle of a really great cinema with big seats, and it's fantastic. And Kaya, if you want to see the movie, it opens on the 4th of November, and you're more than welcome to watch it at Cine Prestige Arts in Rosebank. It's been fantastic, and you guys have been an absolutely wonderful audience, and I hope that we've learned something this evening. But from us out here at Cine Prestige, it is good night.